Okay, in this video we're going to talk about how to make a graph in Excel using Microsoft Excel. So making a graph by hand is sometimes convenient if you're not right at a computer, but using Excel will give you a much more accurate graph, and it'll be a lot easier to make in the long run. If you just take a little bit of time to learn how to do it, it'll make your life much easier. So let's go back to the graph that we had drawn for where we had the spring stretching as we put the dog on the scale, and the bigger the mascot, the bigger the length was that it stretched. So this graph looks pretty messy. First of all, it's done by hand, no rulers were used, and my handwriting's a little messy. So we're going to try to take the same data and put this into Microsoft Excel. So let's pull up Excel. Let's make a new page here. Oh, here we go. I already have the data put in. Okay, so I just took the same data that I had on the other page, and I put it in here under X and Y. Now I really don't even need this column X and Y. I've just put this here to illustrate that in Excel, what you put in this first column, it automatically assumes that this is what's going on your x-axis, and the second column it automatically assumes is going to be your y-axis. Now if you switch those around, there's a way that you can change those, but it's easier if you just put the x's on the left and the y's on the right to begin with. So we wanted mass on our x-axis, so we put all those there, and our lengths on the y. So once you have your data put into the cells, you can just use your cursor to select the data that you want to be in your graph, and then you're going to go up to the top where these tabs are and click Insert. So then what we want to do is insert a chart. And the one that you're going to always pick for this class is going to be scatter. I don't want to say always. There may be some instance where you might make a pie chart or a column graph, but almost always you're going to choose scatter. So if you click on that, there's various options, and you're going to choose the one with no lines, just the points. And we're going to add a line later. So if we click on that, it brings up a nice linear looking graph, just like we had drawn, except better, because it automatically fills in the scales for you. So we are missing a few things on this graph. So if we go back here, we see that we have a scale on our graph, we have our data points, but we still need our labels, we need our units, we need a best fit line, and we need a title. So let's look at how to add those things in Excel. Okay, so if you select the chart, you'll see up here that there should be a green tab open that says Chart Tools. And if you go to the tab that says Layout, you can choose to add a chart title. So I usually like to choose Above Chart so that it doesn't get mixed up with what's on my chart. So then you can select this. We don't want to call it chart title. We want to call it something like length stretched versus mass. And that tells us what's going to be on our axes. Okay, now we need axis labels. So we go over here where it says axis titles. We click on that. So we can add the horizontal axis title. We want to display the title below the axis. So on this axis, we had mass. And then we want to make sure we add our units, kilograms, in parentheses. Okay, then we go back to axis titles. This time we want to add the primary vertical axis title. So there's a couple different options we can choose, rotated, vertical, or horizontal. So vertical title will actually display your letters vertically so that you have to read them down the page. So I usually choose rotated title because it takes up less space than the horizontal title, and it's still easy to read. So then you can come over here and click in here. Now it's kind of difficult to type sideways, so if you want, you can actually use this area up at the top where it says f of x, and as long as you have this box selected, whatever you type here will wind up in this box. So let's type that axis title. That was the length stretched in centimeters. We can just hit enter or click somewhere outside of that, and then that puts that on our chart. We could even make our chart bigger if we want to, so we can see it a little better. So now we have almost everything that we need on our chart. We have our labels, our units, our scale, we have our data points plotted in a title. The last thing that we need is our best fit line. So you can just click on any one of your data points and it will select all of the data points. And then you're going to, after those are selected, right click. And you should see an option to add a trend line. So click on that. So then what automatically comes up is that it chooses linear fit. And so for this particular graph, that's the fit that we want. So if you think that your data fits better with a power or logarithmic or an exponential function, you could choose those. So for instance, if we choose power, or maybe exponential, they'll try to curve it to make it look like an exponential graph, but we see that our data points don't really match up as well with that line as they did with the linear line. So we're going to choose linear. And the second thing we want to choose is to display the equation on the chart. So when I clicked on that, you see that an equation came up over here, y equals 2x plus 0.05. Now the last thing that we're going to do in this box is to set the intercept. So sometimes you can choose to set the intercept at 0, 0. Because in this instance, we were talking about adding mass to a spring and measuring how far the spring stretched. So we should know that if we don't add any mass to the spring will stretch 0 centimeters. So we can set the intercept to be 0. That kind of gives us another point to use in our data. Okay, so then we see that on our equation, the y-intercept went away. So let's move this over here. We can see it a little better. Okay, so now we have y equals 2.0167x. Now Excel doesn't know anything about significant figures, so looking at this we should know that this is a red flag. This has way too many significant figures. So if you were going to record this, you could record fewer significant figures for your answer. You could maybe round that to 2. Or maybe 2.0, depending on how many. We only had one significant figure here for our mass, so we should round that to 2. Alright, and that's how you make a graph in Excel. So then once you have this made, you can click on your graph, you can copy it, and if you want to, you can paste it into a Word document. So if you're writing a lab report, that's how you can get a graph into your lab report. Let's see, paste. And there we go. So that's your basic instructions on how to make a graph in Excel.